Alright, a few seconds done, and now, everyone, today is March 3rd, 2018. It is a Saturday, and you are listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. Now, Ed has requested that, yes, Ed is cuckoo evidently, but Ed has requested...
Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, huh?
Oh, you want TSP paint thinner in your body? Okay.
No. I know it's made with false fakes.
But anyways, he requested this soundbite be played so we can comprehend that the corporate president might actually be getting pressured, because this does not sound like the Trump we knew before. Listen to this.
Allow due process, so no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons in the possession
Or
of that
might
individual.
take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system, because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms, they saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time, so you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
That soundbite is being taken down. The video is being taken down like crazy lately.
Yeah, play it one more time, please.
Okay, but beforehand, who was sitting to his left, Ed?
Oh, Dianne Feinstein is sitting to his left in the video on this one.
Yeah.
So people need to pay attention where he's getting the pressure from. And I think he's being threatened exactly like, former gentleman who ran for president, who was a multi-millionaire, billionaire. Now I'm having a brain part of his name. Who did I mention earlier?
I don't know. You want me to...
We'll come up to that here in a minute. Not to be doing that. I've been fighting my computer all afternoon.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting battle trying to get some of this stuff done.
So I'll play this again, and once it's done, you just get going, all right?
Yeah. So anyhow, let me get going into the talk show, and I'll come back to the rest of it.
All right.
Because people need to comprehend what is really going on, and I had to stop posting this around because I was getting ready to be knocked off of Facebook again. Nothing new. And it is very disturbing that it's really being disturbing. And I posted this all around the militias and a few other people and military sites that people are involved with. So that way they get to see what's coming down the pike, because I want to get into the other point, too, of this. People have not paying attention to what's going on in the FEMA camps. And the FEMA camps, that's why they built all these Walmart stores, and we got videos we're going to be putting up that, and you can type in Walmart FEMA camp videos, and you can actually watch them converting Walmart stores into FEMA camps in your local cities. This is not a joke. I got a good video with a gentleman in San Jose, California, who actually did a wonderful 4.5-minute video and showing you where the cameras are. There's other people that have got videos where they're remodeling the stores inside of the stores, setting them up like concentration camps. This is real, folks. So when this acting president is coming out and telling everybody that he's going to just take away people's arms without due process, and I'm going to get into that here in a minute. I'm going to read a couple laws that we're going to have flashing up on the deal on the website. I mean the Facebook site. I mean YouTube site coming up. Anyhow, there's all the states are coming across with these new anti-arms bills. And see, the one thing is, people, when you're out in public and somebody talks to you about guns, you do not say you have a gun or a weapon. Absolutely not. You have arms. Learn the lawful terminology, not the legal terminology. You go by the legal terminology, you give up your rights 100%. Okay, that's like when they say, oh, well, you need to register or you need to certify. When you register and certify, then you're giving away your rights by doing that. End of story. This is not a joke. This is what people got to pay attention. You know, and I've got a video that I put up on our website, the Civil War 1866 Lawful Bloodline Americans for the 48 States USA. And then I also, too, have a video on the United States for America Republic, Elected and Public Servants Oversight, New Oregon Trackers on Facebook. And this is the one thing that people have got to pay attention to what's going on. I put up a video with a Hitler survival condensed gun control. And her name is Kate Worthman. Kate, Katieworthman. You can type that in YouTube, or if you're not on my site, you can type that in YouTube and pull up her video. She explains the whole thing, what happened in Germany. And this is where people got to pay attention. This is real, folks. And all these people say, they can't do this. They're not going to do this. They're going to do this and that. Wake up, people. People are getting shot in their own homes right now today. Literally, right now today, getting shot in their own homes for not registering arms. The law says you don't have to register arms. I'm going to read some of the law here to you. But the point is that I'm putting together information so you can send to your House and senators and ask them to prove it in certified writing. You want them to prove this circumstances. You want them to certify it. Because then that way we got evidence on that point when people get that. Then that way we can start working together. But this is the point, folks, is that several states are doing this right now today. They're putting in gun control bills without your knowledge. They don't want you to know what they're doing. Because if you knew what they were doing, oh my God, what is that going to do? You know, this is the one thing the House, your Congress just put in. H.R. 5087, Assault Weapons Ban of 2018. They just put that in so that way they could disarm you. And this is not a fiction. This is real. The House of Representatives put this in. They have 1/3 of the entire House of Representatives endorsing this bill. So if you don't start calling in and writing letters and putting this stuff in and ask them to prove on the Constitution right, and I'm going to read some laws here for you. Because this is the one thing that if people do not stand up, you're not going to have a right. You're going to end up in a FEMA camp, and that's guaranteed, because we played a videotape of FEMA camps when they put that in existence in 1993, 1998, and the circumstances with them even reading this bill on the House and Senate floor, and I got flagged on YouTube for posting that video up because they didn't want that video out because it was a congressional record video. It was no copyright or anything. They just tagged me because they didn't want the content of the video on my Facebook and when I was passing it around. So, Dons versus Bidwell, 182 U.S. 244, 1901. In doing so, it is concealed at once that the true rule of constructed is not to consider one's perversion of the Constitution alone, but contemplate all. And therefore, and this is on my website, and I'll be posting these up on the website, the other website, or the other Facebook sites here shortly, to limit one's concealed attribute. By this qualification, which naturally rests from the other's powers granted by that instrument, that the whole may be interpreted by the spirit of which vivis, V-I-V-I-F-E-S, and not to be a letter which kills intended a view of the rule of construction, which I have just concealed, that all powers confirmed by the Constitution must be interpreted, which reference to the natural of the government and the constructed and harmony related to provision of the Constitution, and this is dealing with concealed weapons and your rights to have arms. So I'm saying it's very important you read the words arm. United States versus Crunchyank. 92 U.S. 542, 1875. This was done, 1875. So you got to remember, these are things that we've already been in war over. The right to bear arms is not guaranteed by the Constitution. Neither is any manner dependent upon the instrument from its existence. The Second Amendment means no more than thou shalt not be infringed by Congress, and has no other effect than restricting the powers of the national government. And that's what I'm saying. National government is the British government. Everybody goes, I want to be a national. Well, you register as a national, you're giving up your rights because you're going by the British government. And so we've got these things to bring up to people, and I'm going to bring up another one. An attorney fails to file a UCC financial statement in the manner necessary to perfect his client's security, interests, constituents malpractice as a matter of law. That's Lori versus Poroff, and that is 296 AD 2D 535 536 745 New York State 2D 219 2002. That was done in 2002. So this is what I was saying. When you go in, if you're doing a UCC deal on your defense too, here's a case that I'll get posted on the walls here shortly that defends you. But you've got to start waking up. I hear people all the time says, "Well, I have the right to travel. They can't do that," and then you end up in jail. Oh, trust me, I know how it goes. That's what I'm saying. You want to get things certified from them. I have information from Oregon that the Article 1, Section 10 does exist. But you want to get it certified. You want to get these members of the House and Senate members coming back to you in letters so that way you have evidence of what they're doing. If you don't have the evidence, they can do any damn thing they want to do. That is the one thing that people have got to comprehend, that this is a reality. I mean, it's like in the state of Oregon. They just passed a Senate bill that Kate Brown signed in the state of Oregon. Corporation, okay, remember, I'm talking corporation. Oregon legislators passed a bill to allow starving of mentally ill patients to death. So if they got mentally ill in even the jails, they can starve you to death. In old folks' homes, they can starve you to death. And when people put their family members into these places and they go, well, and then it happens and they get upset. Oh my God, I get so upset they can't do that. Well, it's already past tense when your relatives are passed. You got to fight it now before it even happens. The other news too tonight is Sessions is another domestic terrorist. Gives green light to police to seize cash property from people suspected of a crime but not charged. So in other words, they're saying that now they can take anything from you, and if you don't have your land posted, especially they can walk on your land and take your land. They can do anything they want and seize it because you don't have a filing done. You don't have your rights posted. That's why I tell you. That's why I suggest ask for certification. You know, that's the one thing is once we get certification from these people, then that way we have defense. They know it. These men and women know it. And everybody goes, well, I have a constitutional right. I have this. I have that. Well, you know, you go do that. It's like a guy just went to court, and I just got off the phone with him yesterday. Well, I have a constitutional right to travel and all this stuff. And I said, we talked about this months ago. Did you ever file and get things that were suggested to you? Oh, no, I didn't think I had to do that. I figured the judge was going to honor his oath. People, wake up. That's the one thing. These judges don't give a damn about you, your children, your wives, or anything about you. They rape, rob, and pillage. It's no different than going back in history. It's the same thing. They've been doing this to us after World War II. When you realize when you go out in public, we're no different than Nazi Germany. when it comes down to it. Cops pull people over, shoot them. They break their windows open. They pry their doors open. It's the same thing as Nazi Germany. You're living it today. This ain't no fantasy. And if you don't do what they tell you, then they come in and then take your stuff and shoot you. They do this. I mean, last week I was talking about, I put up videos too when I was up at the Oregon House and Senate when they tried to kill me and then they poisoned me in jail. And I have the records to prove it. The videos I even did on the Oregon State House and Senate public hearings. I went to the former district attorney, Rob Yvette, there, and did he deny anything? No. Everybody wanted to end the hearing immediately, quickly. Because they didn't want to give me the rights to speak out on this stuff. They didn't want this stuff on record. It's like I have Representative Mitch Greenleak on record in 2015 admitting property taxes are voluntary. So, I mean, and that's the point, is when I go up there to these public hearings, I usually talk to them and I get them to bring out things that, I ask them, is this the law or is this statute code administrative rules? The one hearing that I did was on the judicial fitness for the state of Oregon, and I even have it on record where I turn the structure in that attorney has no rights and attorneys are fraud and all that. And that was one of the hearings. They wanted to shut me up and they tried to gavel me out, and I just kept on talking. And then that way, when I basically got almost to the end of where I was at, that's when I just adjourned the committee. But they didn't put the evidence into the record of the House and Senate. That if you go to my videos, which I have up that I posted too, of me being in there, and you go to the videos and you can see the stuff on record I put on with the judges and attorneys in record 2 years ago. So they have that, but it's blurred. It's blurred through the whole thing. They blurred it, but they put it in record, but they blurred it so that way it was hard to read and to deal with that one for the general public, because they don't want you people to know this truth. You know, that's the one thing. They don't want you to know the truth. And that's the point that gets to me about what's going on with Walmart. I mean, they've got military that are setting up Walmart stores right now for FEMA camps. They're developing it right now. This is no joke. Some of the Walmart stores actually put in the Walmart stores FID chips for their employees. That way, if they didn't get it, and this is in the Midwest, if they didn't get an FRID chip in them, they didn't have a job. So they're telling you, if you want a job, you're going to give up your rights. You're going to do this privilege so that way you don't have right standing. And it goes to where they're putting all these cell towers up all over the place. They're monitoring you through your chips and your credit card. And trust me, they can wipe those credit cards out immediately off those chips. Police departments are using a new radio frequency that the way they can actually wipe out your financial money in your accounts. They can wipe them out. And then you have to go try to figure out who did what, and the banks can't tell you what they did because they're under bank contract on that with the corporations. Remember, corporations are not there to protect you. It's called a corpse, C-O-R-P-S, a dead body, an inanimate object. And that is the one thing that you've got to start paying attention to, these things of what's going on. Because these men and women don't care about you. That's like going back to Agenda 21. I've got videos up on that one. New videos that came out. I mean, it's like in California, they're dealing with a nuclear reactor plant in Southern California leaking into the ocean. Well, of course, we got that with Hanford because I put videos up, and Hanford has been already proved leaking in the Columbia River, contaminating everything around it. King 5 News out of Washington ran a whole series on it, how they're poisoning the rivers, and both governors of Washington and Oregon personally know this. They don't give a damn. They honestly don't give a damn. So they care about money because that's like Cape Brown trying to sell off the Columbia River water rights to Nestle Corporation. Because the president of Nestle Corporation says having water is a privilege of life. And these people are serious when they bring this stuff up, and people laugh this stuff up and go, well, that doesn't affect me. That doesn't mean anything to me. And it does, too. That's like when I'm bringing up H.R. 5087, the assault weapon ban of 2018. states have got this. That was the point that I brought up to you with Congress. Now, states, I don't have the ones in states because my computer crashed on me and I haven't uploaded everything back to it. That's what I got to do. But there's a dozen states right now that are putting in weapon bans in their states, stating if you have a weapon in your possession that is not relevant to a license to you, or that might be assumed in any type of incident, they could take the weapon. Another horrifying thing, in Dutch in the Netherlands, just passed a bill in the Netherlands saying all people's organs belong to the government. You don't have a right to your body. The Netherlands could, take your organs anytime they want it for elected or public official or a rich person. The Netherlands just passed that. It amazes me how people do not pay attention what's going on. It just really amazes me, that people do not pay attention what's really going on. And the one thing that I do recommend people watch beside Interstate 60 is also, too, watch the videos from a very well guy who does a lot of work and research where they try to take him out with Jordan Maxwell. Watch his videos, including on religion. Watch his videos and how he walks through the religion structure on it. Because people have got to pay attention to what's really going on in the society here. Because if you're not paying attention to what's going on, and then all of a sudden you get something that is, all of a sudden you're attacking you and you're trying to figure out what's going on after the fact. We're trying to get you to comprehend this stuff before it happens. File your rights. Know your rights. Stand up and get this stuff filed. So by federal law, John F. Kennedy, he didn't register in the 1938 Foreign Registration Act. So that's been amended after that, but everybody has to. Everybody has to who's elected a public official, registered church member, registered voters, and most of all, besides being a registered voter, all immigrations has to register in it. But it's knowing the law compared to what people think the law is. And I'm not talking statute, codes, and administrative rules. I'm talking law. The law comes by, and remember, they use statute, codes, and administration as law themselves. So you don't want to get into those type of arguments. You want to be able to have this stuff set up so you can protect yourself. And that is the main point of learning how to protect yourself. We're putting more and more up on new.org and trackers to aid in the protection of people so that way they can save themselves, because it's up to you to save yourself. Because if you don't save yourself, nobody else is. And I hate to, I'm not going to be a downplayer too, but you can always ask God anything you want, but I haven't seen God do anything. So myself, you have to do it yourself. You have to rely on yourself. We have to rely on each other. That's the whole point here, relying on each other to make these things happen. Once we get these things happening, and we get to that way where people comprehend what the circumstances is going on, that is the point that you have to wake up and comprehend that these men and women do not care about you. They'll go after their own family members. That's their job. That's their employment. And everybody goes, well, the federal government. Well, the federal government's the British government out of Washington, D.C. It is the Vatican contract of 1871 after the Civil War that hired elected and public servants under that structure. Read it, type it in. That's Article 1, and that even falls under Article 1 courts, legislative courts. That's the point. They're legislative courts. They have nothing to do with anything else but just going legislative. That's the people you learn what an Article 3 court is. Because an Article 3 court is the Constitution Court. An Article 1 is when you go in, like for your traffic ticket, or your dog, gets violated, or any other misdemeanor violation. And remember, violations is where they make their money off of we the people. That's their whole employment structure. Cops say, well, we don't make money off it. Yes, they do. They honestly make money off it because they get paid to go to court. They get paid a percentage of the tickets when they're done. And that's the point, that they're going to lie to you, because the Supreme Court has stated that police and judges and district attorneys can lie. So once they're able to lie to you, they can get away with it. And that's what they want to be able to get away with, is getting away with lying to you. Because if lie, cheating, and stealing, that's how they get their money. And that's basically their income level that comes for them to lie, cheat, and steal to get their money. And that's how they go in and steal property taxes, even though that we've got administrative rules or actual federal law that says you can't pay debt with debt. And I'll pull that one up here in a minute. And this is like, when you're trying to do all this stuff and people want to go pay debts and they don't get what's going on in our system. So you have to realize the system is not for you. People say that this is supposed to protect me. It's not there to protect you. So that's the one thing is, unless you know how to use the system to your advantage and use it correctly, that's how you have a right to the system. But you personally have to know how to write your court cases up, how to present them. We've all been through a lot of hard knocks writing up our court cases, and I've been there myself. I've talked to many people who have been through that themselves, and we learn how to improve it. And so slowly people are starting to win their court cases because a lot of these people, the court systems, they don't want it publicly brought into a court. It's like once it's brought out into a court, they can't run and hide, and they don't want this truth out. And that's the one thing that you have to realize when it comes to your arms. Quit using the word guns, weapons, firearms. Those are democracy words to keep you in their system. These attorneys have written a lot of stuff to keep people in their system, and that's what they want to do. That's the one thing they really want to keep you in. And that's the one thing as I tell people to suggest, I can't tell anybody what to do, you're all adults. H.R. 192, Law 10, Chapter 408, 48 Stat 1112, Public Law 7310, 40 Stat 411. That's supposed to be when they took away the gold and silver, that we have a right to write off our debts. That's property taxes, water, electricity. And I'm still trying to get that finished up, dealing with the Oregon State Utility Commission, because I am working with them on that. I got to get back to it. I haven't been back on it. But there is a certified copy that you can actually get that I posted around, and I believe we have it on our website. And please, I encourage people to pay the $8 and get the damn thing printed. Because once you have the congressional record certified, and that's what it is, from the Law Library of Congress, certified in the Law Library from the Law Library. So now you have evidence to prove it, and when somebody gets a hard copy, I like to get one sent to me too, because I don't have the resources, because they're coming after me pretty hard, trying to further drain me out, because they already cleaned me out. My house has been robbed 3 times by the police department. I've actually been in the court system when they robbed my house. So, and that's one thing that gets to me. I mean, they robbed my house, and then I'm getting charged for my house being robbed in Lincoln County. And I was, and that's the one thing is when you go to court, if your house was robbed by the cops, I didn't know how to fight it correctly back then. But I did brought in my birth certificate, tried to turn that in for evidence, and they freaked out on me for that one. I mean, they were like, what the hell are you bringing that in here for? That has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. You get the hell out of here with that birth certificate. And so that's the one thing that you have to comprehend, how these things work compared to what we're led to believe in the fantasy land that most people live. And I admit to that because, I mean, I've been through that where I've sat there and, stood on the street corner basically yelling and screaming, I have constitutional rights. And then I realized I have rights, but I never claimed my rights. I didn't file my rights. I didn't own me. Once you have a registration with the state, you get owned. It's like a birth certificate. You want to get a manufacturer state of origin on that child, like a car. When it was manufactured, that's the one thing is you want a manufacturer state of origin claiming that that vehicle or that property is yours. Now, this is the one thing that we all know, 1938 Foreign Registration Act, and I'm going to read that for you here, so this way you comprehend that. And then I'm going to get into how every state has to form to the Constitution, not the corporation Constitution. Failure to file the foreign agent registration statement goes directly to the judiciary, and lack of standing to be before the court is a felony. And that is 18 U.S.C. 219951. And you want to make sure you print that up, and when you go to court, make sure that your judge is filed, and you want to get a copy of his oath, certified copy of his oath, before you go to court. I always recommend people to go down to the county clerk's office and get a copy of the oath certified. You'll find out the most copies that you do get certified is to the corporation, not of the original Constitution. Some of them really do have to the original Constitution, but most do not. And that's where you have to comprehend and figure out the difference on the circumstances, and file it on the circumstances. See, when these men and women make claims like going after with this, apparently Donald Trump is acting as a domestic terrorist now, coming and saying we're going to disarm you. Well, now needs to be filed treason charges on him. How many people are willing to stand up and put their name on a treason charge on him? 2 or more witnesses, that's a crime. I mean, I did that with Kate Brown, and all these people wanted to recall Kate Brown and all this stuff, and then when I put the lawful one up for recall Kate Brown, everybody panicked. And I'm explaining to people that this is the way it needs to be done by we the people. You want to go by their corporation, you're not going to get anything done because they run the voting machines. When they did the electronic voting machines, they run it. They run it, and they can program the numbers into that electronic machine. This is fact. I mean, we've had a couple of these tax bills in Lincoln County that went through, and everybody I talked to said they voted no for it, and I'm like, well, how did it go through? And it's like people want to argue that point. I said, no, the point is figuring out what the machines are, the date of the machines. Are they able to program themselves? Are they able to be programmed to have these things pass through? And that's what they're going to do with these arms bills, or what they call gun bills. They're going to be doing that with the alleged gun bills to do this so that way they can pull it over on you. And once people start comprehending that they have to file their rights, file these circumstances, it's up to you people to educate your kids too. The school district is mind controlling them. When you, no offense to those religion organizations, when you go into religion organizations, they're teaching you how to go by basically bowing instead of standing up for your rights. The preachers and the ministers and all this stuff, they do it deliberately, give you misinformation because they get personal and financial gain. Hey, that's the one thing you have to realize, that most people, or some people out there, most people are out there trying to make a living, but then they take advantage of other people. They do shoddy work, and then it's like, take me to court, take me to court. And you try to take somebody to court, or they do shoddy work, let's say building guys, and then you go to the building inspectors, and then you go to the state certification, and they tell you, well, there's nothing we can do, we just certify them, so that way they can basically rape, rob, and pillage. That's the way I look at it. Because I've been through that. I've been through that with the state when my vehicle, one of my covered wagons was worked on 20 years ago, and they didn't put the rear end together. When they put the back of the rear end in the back of my van, and I was glad I wasn't on the freeway. I was driving down a dirt road at 30 miles an hour when both of my axles came out. They didn't put the pin in the axle. So I ended up going to court over that, and then it turned out the judge was the best friends of the guy who owned the shop. Yes, I had a conflict of interest, but, I realized that when you go into these things, you cannot take it to your local court here. You got to take it to a court outside, preferably take it to an Article III court. When you have a conflict of interest in your community, take them to an Article III court. Stay away from the Article I's. So anyhow, every state law must conform first place to the Constitution of the United States. Those are not the capital spellings. That is not the incorporation. And then the subordinate Constitution of the particular state. Remember, your state has a constitution with the federal corporation, but it's a subordinate one. So, and if it infringes upon the provisions of either of its far void, so if your state constitution doesn't go where your rights are, that's Houston versus Moore, 18 U.S. 1 5 LED 1840. See, this was done in 1840 on this first court case that was done before the corporations had their teeth into all this. They had some of it going back then, but it wasn't really known to the general public or the House and Senate back then. Some of them knew it, but they didn't think of nothing of it. It is to be the truth. Nothing can destroy a government more quickly than its failure to observe its own laws, or worse, disregard of the charter of its own existence. And that is Mape versus Ohio, and this was done in 1961. Another court case on that one says if they don't go by their own charter and administrative rules, and that's what we have them under, that we the people are the first branch of government. Then we have 3 other branches, and I've argued with people saying that, well, there's only 3 branches of government. Well, it says in the structure, we the people are the first. We the people are over the other 3. The other 3 don't have authority to exist unless we, without our power. That's Harris versus New York, United States, Supreme Court 401 U.S. 222, 1971. So if they're not going by the Constitution oath, not the Foreign Corporation oath of 1871, the Vatican oath. See, once you comprehend that there's 2 oaths in this country, one is the Constitution oath. One is the oath that goes by the original Constitution. Now, Title V, U.S.C. Section 3331, Oath of Office. And this is where Trump needs to start being nailed on. Oath of office states officials are required to meet the same obligations according to state constitution and state statute laws. But it says state constitution first. So your employees have to go by the state constitution and statute laws. And like, for an example, with statute laws in the state of Oregon, and every state has it, that you have a right to travel without a license. And I've got the numbers on that, proving that, and they're freaking out. So I've got another one letter going out to the House and Senate on the rights to travel here pretty soon, because I'm going to be asking them. And we got a letter that I had to clarify that I'm going to be having finished up probably tomorrow, so we can get that up on the website on who owns the children. Do you own your children? Does the legislative branch own the children? Does the executive branch own the children? You know, I mean, this are the things that need to be asked to your elected and public officials in writing, and you want to get their response back in writing. Now, as they say no, that the people own their own children, oh, now you got evidence when DHS tries to come into your home and steal your kid. That's like going and asking them who owns the right to arms. You know, we put a letter together on that. I'll be working on one like that in the middle of the week. So who all has the right to own arms? And I will actually put up some of the real history in the right to own arms. But the thing is that you need to put this stuff together. Because if you don't individually do this, and people will say, well, why do we have to do it? They know the law. They're supposed to do this. They're supposed to do that. People, the main point here is that we have legal and illegal immigration in our country. Immigrants have privileges. They cannot have rights until after the Supreme Court stated and congressional record has, which we have put in our instruments, including for the one that we served for Judge Scalia and Judge Roberts on the Constitution affidavit that we filed dealing with lawful and legal in this country. And if you want a copy of that, that's on the Facebook sites that we have up there. So you can actually print it out. You can see what the congressional records really are. I mean, I did the research and went through, you know, I don't know, a month worth of research to make sure when I put that together, it's a long instrument. I think it's like, I think that one is 48 pages. And I put everything in congressional records, the whole history of immigration going back to 1770. And when the first immigration law went into effect in 1774, before we had the Revolutionary War. So they already had this stuff in place back then on immigration. And then people say, well, the 14th Amendment don't apply. Well, I've got proof that it was ratified by congressional records. I got proof that it wasn't ratified. So it's like, okay, but the Supreme Court in 1884 stated that you had to be lawfully born on this soil. It didn't say land, it said soil in the Supreme Court decision. And it doesn't mean, oh, I was born here, I'm an immigrant. No, that didn't mean that, because back in 1884, you were born on this soil. You weren't immigrants primarily back then. We didn't know how many immigrants were coming in, and they made sure, and I have that in our newsletter that we put out for Talk Show every week, that they separated for lawful and legal and administrative rules and law. And if I go back here and I get that, I'll read that to you, so that way you comprehend what I'm saying is a fact, not hearsay evidence. Because I literally do research on this stuff. Literally, hours and hours of research I do myself. I make sure that there's not a conflict of interest. Because I'm not out to put a conflict of interest in. Because we put a conflict of interest in, then that way we're screwing ourselves. We want facts. We don't want hearsay evidence. Hearsay evidence is admissible in court. That even includes a district attorney. A judge is administrator to the court. He has no legal distractions to tell you in court what or why what the court does. He is to be the mediator of administrative court to tell you who's out of bounds and who's not out of bounds. He has no authority even to convict anyone. Only a jury does. In the state of Oregon in 1999, they took that out and put administrative law in. Prior to that, you had to go to jury trial. And they took that out off of the J. Smith murder trial in 1988, or accidental shooting. And I know, when all that hit in the paper and stuff, I personally lived that because it was my former wife's brother-in-law. So I've been through this where I've lost relatives by this armed structures. But I'm not going to sit there and bow my head and give up my rights. You know, so that way I can be shoved into a FEMA camp or being just hauled out anywhere they want. Federal Constitution makes a clarified distinction between natural, native, born. And if you look up the word native, that's 100 years or more. And citizen and nationals of the United States Incorporation. So let me repeat that so people comprehend this. The federal Constitution makes a careful distinction between natural, native, born, and citizens and nationals of the United States Incorporation. This is by the laws and congressional records. This is what was done in 1884, compared to 2.1.5 with a section 1 of the 14th Amendment. One is an unconstitutional sovereign, or as an unconditional sovereign, by natural born in the 48 Union States, soil, who is endowed by the Creator. The other is granted privilege as a United States citizen or national endowed by Congress of the United States Incorporation. And we even have that. I even put that up through Article 1, Article 1 courts last week when we did that, dealing with immigration, and Congress made citizens and nationals. It wasn't done by the Constitution. It wasn't done by anything else. Congress did that so they could allow immigration, and that started really getting put up and pushed after Ellis Island. And don't remember, until 1940, birth certificates were not a recorded or record structure. And it wasn't. And I've talked to people saying they've proven me that they had birth certificates allegedly to some parents and grandparents back in 99 and 1902, but they were very hazily, and it was hard to distinction if it was actual real or not. I didn't have the paper in my hand, so it's hard to go by something that you see on a screen. I preferably like to have stuff in my hand so I can make a self-determination. Okay, one is a citizen and national. The other is subject to. One native is a sovereign. The other is subordinate from religious beliefs. I go see your First Amendment. You see, I don't believe in foreign structure that brought their structure to this country. I go by native law. That's, you know, going back to Indian law or whatever you want to call it. Remember, Indians were not the only natives here. And that's been proven more than once that we've had natives of different colors. And let me make a point here. Color is not, what do they call that? Racism. And if you look at the Supreme Court decision, racism is religion. But they Democrats bring it out to keep you divided and fighting amongst each other while they're laughing to the bank because they know that you're not going to catch it and you don't want to pay attention to the reality of what's filed and what's written on the structures of what's really going on in this country. And this is the one thing that the lawful American of our Constitution Republic. But under the Fourth Amendment, it says Republican fourth form of government. So that's the one thing to realize, the separation of citizens or national or legalized democratic democracy by Congress. So they get legal. Legal is a British administrative rule of the 1871 two constitutions we have of the Vatican Constitution that they did. And that's the one thing you can type in, British Vatican Contract, 1871 Civil War Federal Zone reference to the British Vatican. And it'll come up. And you can actually read the structure that the agreement happened because either we ended up hiring the Democrats, the British government, as employees, or we were going to still be in a bloody war continually. So that's where the compromise to my comprehension of reading the stuff I've done, what I put together, and what I brought out to people, is that we could still be, we're still going through war in a sense, because after World War II, we've been so Naziized that it's amazing. Because I remember when I used to travel in California, I mean, you know, I had basically through AAA, I had traveler's insurance. I didn't have driver's insurance. Big difference. And it's hard to find traveler's insurance today. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with traveler's insurance so long as it's stated that you don't have to have a license and all that stuff. And there are insurance companies that still have that, but it's hard to find them. I've been informed that they are in existence, but I'm still trying to find them. And this is the one thing that when you realize that it is separated from native, natural, born on this soil, compared to an immigrant. And these immigrants, and people say, well, they were born on this soil, they have a right. No, they don't. That's why everybody started going after Trump, because when he's saying, no, they don't, because, I mean, I know I sent him the structure and them the structure in Congress of what Judge Scalia had, and I proved it by their own administrative rules. And I got comments back from a couple of congressmen going, well, we didn't know that. Thank you for the information. So, I mean, and that's the one thing that people don't read the structure. So when you talk about arms, talk about arms. And arms means any type of arms. Because if you actually read the law, you're allowed to own a tank if you want to, a working tank. But that means you have to be 100% liable and responsibility in your community for, or, and I hate using the word British terminology of community, but in your area. You're allowed to have different weapons, as they call them, but arms, that even they're trying to go after flamethrowers. Flamethrowers are legal, what they call legal, in our country. Of course, that scares the hell out of me, having a tank blow up on me, but, I mean, it's just one of those things that we have a right, somebody has a right to it. Let them have the responsibility of it. They're putting their livelihood on it. So in the one Supreme Court decision that works very well is Hale versus Hinckley, 201 U.S. 43 at 89, 1906. That works for even citations, travel tickets, arms, anything like that. Because that says, and not only that, in the decisions of that, and I'm trying to remember the one in Florida, says that cities, counties, and states cannot even own property. And I've got the administrative rules in the Banking Act that says banks cannot even own property. And that's the one thing that when you're quoting these stuff, you want to quote their words. You want them to see that, all right, if they're going to go through against their own administrative rules and their own records, let them prove that. See, when people sit there going, I'm going to prove all this stuff, you want to write it and ask them, is this correct or is this not correct? Have them respond to you in writing back. You want to have the evidence. You know, and here's another point that people need to know, especially with your arm rights. Since the common use of the term person does not include sovereign status, employee of the phrase ordinary constructed to include it. United States versus General Mills Corporation. So if you're claiming to be a person, that means you are not an American. When you use the word person, so many people use the word person. And I'm going to get into the one court case that does this deal with that. That's called the Church of Scientology versus United States Department of Justice, 612 F2D 417 at 425, 1971. The word person is a legal terminology. They've already determined the word person, and everybody knows in Black Law Dictionary, person is an inanimate object. So if you're not using woman, man, or living, you know, you use their terminology, especially in court. That's how they bring it back in the court structure of their jurisdiction. You always want to challenge jurisdiction, too, because there's 5 or 6 jurisdictions in a court. And you want to ask them, what jurisdiction? And when they go in, you see that flag in that courtroom. Eagle, that's Roman law. The ball on top of the flag, that's military law. See, it's knowing how these things work and the court system works and comprehending how these things work compared to what we're led to believe. And to make one thing clear to you, and I got that point, I'll read that point here in a minute, but Title 42, 408, Section 8, Section A, 8, Title 42, 408, want to make sure you comprehend that. In general, whenever disclosing use or compels to disclose of one's Social Security number of a person is in violation of the law of the United States, shall be guilty of a felony, and upon conviction shall be fined under Title 18 or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. Even if you give your Social Security out to an employer, that's a crime. That's a federal crime. So when people ask me, and I've gone in even with the medical people, well, we need your Social Security, and I write Title 42, 408, 8A. And I say, do you have a problem with that? Oh, no. The clerks and everybody go, oh, no. And then I put 192 on it, HR 192 on it. And I said, do you have a problem with that? And they just says, here's the original. We'll take the copy. And you could always ask for the original, so that way you have the original. That way they cannot mark that paper. Trust me, they will do that. And I've had that happen to me. It is clearly established, the principle of law, that an attorney must represent a corporation. It is being a corporal and a creator of law. An attorney represents an artificial entity, must appear with the corporation charter and law in his hands. So your birth certificate is registered as a corporation. Write your charter up. You have your charter. Hey, if you get forced in a public pretender, here's your charter to your corporation. Doesn't say that they write it up. I've never seen it. A person acting as an attorney for a foreign agent principal must register to act in the principal behalf. C. Foreign Agent Registration Act 22 USC 412. So if your attorney's not registered in the Foreign Registration Act, he just committed a felony. That's imprisonment. That's where the FBI, Mueller, was just fired by Trump, and Trump had to fire 3 of his own personal attorneys he has working for them for years because they weren't registered. There's been a lot of House members and elected and public officials across the country that, as the mainstream media won't write, who have been indicted for not registering. That is a real fact. But if they start telling the people the truth, oh my God, we couldn't be so controlled by the corporation or by religion. Because religion is another one that controls people. You know, I mean, I've read a lot of stuff on the internet where people send me where churches are putting up a free thinker is a man that is run by Satan or the devil. So you're not supposed to be a free thinker. You're supposed to just do what you're told. And that is Romans 13, section 1 of the New Testament says, "Thou shalt do what the government tells me what to do." And you can put that up, bring it up. That's, you know, people want to go by these books. Because it's a book to me. It's not long. And then under the structure, too, of Title 5331, an oath of office is in compliance to the 1776 ratified 1778 Constitution. So judges in Article 3 courts do have a separation of their constitutional oath compared to their corporation oath. And you ask for that. Don't be bashful. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed to ask for that. You know, that's like asking for the original 13th Amendment article of amendments. The 13th Amendment does exist. It is proven in record. I've written that up in many instruments. We put that in several cases, and they just don't want to deal with it. Nationals and citizens are members of a political community who, in their associates capacity, have established the submitted themselves to the domination of a government for the promotion of their own general welfare and the production of their individual as well as collective rights. That is United States versus I'm going to spell it CruikshANK. I know I said that earlier. 92 U.S. 542. So if you're a citizen or national, you're saying you're a member of the general welfare. And it's like, look at the term. One guy really pointed that out to me, but general always means a general in the army, general in service. So look at these things. Pull it up. Read it, because you have to protect your families. These men and women are not there to protect your families. These public servants are out to get personal and financial gain for themselves. Federal law also prohibits cities and counties for issuing citations against businesses. So your birth certificate is considered a corporation business. And if you have a business, that's Title 18 U.S.C. 891-896, quoting Section 891, means which involves the use and express of impact, threat of use of violence or a criminal means to cause harm to the person, reputation, or property. No one is to obey an unconstitutional law. This is from the courts. Constitutional law. No courts are bound to enforce them. Federal law prohibits, and I just read that to you, and that is Title 18 U.S.C. 891-896. So what I always recommend, and everybody hears me talking about this, is use their rules, use their reputations, use their structure against them. You know, the Supreme Court has definitely stated it is not the duty of a police to protect you. That is Sapp versus Tulsa. In that case is when 2 old women were raped in their home. They called the police. The police finally showed up. So they went to sue the police department, and they said, well, they have no responsibility, do you? But you have to comprehend that, when it really comes down to it, unless you give a police officer permission or you surrender your rights to them, that's how they get authority over you. So you don't want to give them permission. Always use their administrative rules against them. Look it up. We've got this stuff on the new.org and trackers. I post the stuff on our Facebook walls all the time. But see, once you comprehend that these things exist, and they're not just hearsay evidence, that's how things work. Hearsay evidence is inadmissible in court. Facts or not. And this is where I want to get into, seeing that they're going after our arms, the military flag with the gold fringe. Okay, remember, when you go into court, they have that gold fringe flag. That's a military flag. Pursuant to 4 U.S.C. Chapter 1, 1, 2, and 3, Executive Order 10834, August 21, 1959. Say, they have already known this stuff, what goes on in court. That's why they make these executive orders. But this executive order clearly states that if they have the gold fringe flag in that courtroom, it is a crime. And you have to report that crime to the federal government. Your state attorney general is going to cover that up. I'm dealing with mail fraud right now. I'm dealing with, in my community, where my postmaster down here, she's actually covering up evidence from court cases I'm dealing with myself right now. They refuse to deliver my mail. They're tampering with evidence. And I've filed all this stuff. I got to raise more heck this week on it. But it's been 6 weeks now. I haven't received the evidence that's been sent to me that I'm supposed to be having for what I need. And they do this stuff. They know it. They're all sitting there. That's why in a democracy, everybody holds their arms together. And, it's like when you used to say, Red Rover, come on over. This is what they do today. These men and women know they're raping people. They know they're robbing people. They don't care. And so that you get it, Section 33002, Chapter 176 of the Federal Debt Collection Procedure, Section 3002, United States, means a federal corporation. That is 28 U.S.C. 3002 and 15. Title 28, United States is a corporation code. Means literally, it is a District of Columbia Municipality Corporation Code of the states and district courts. Those are your Article 1 courts. So it's knowing and comprehending when you get these things attacked on you, how to defend yourself. And that's the one thing that once you start getting your stuff where you're feeling confident, you always want to make sure if you go to these tribunal courts that you've got an audience there. Make sure you got lots of people there. Put the pressure on a judge. In 1868, the 14th Amendment was originally amended and created to define citizens, making all persons a corporation. Citizens and nationals of the United States are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So they've got this stuff where they're putting us in, and most people don't comprehend what they're comprehending. Or, well, I know I have the rights, but if you don't have the rights, and they're quoting back that I'm not a non-corporation member, I don't want to be a part of your corporation. It's like when I did my registration, deregulated myself as a voter, the clerk brought out a special form to make sure that when I autographed that special form, I was completely out of the system, so I was not liable for their debts. When you're a registered voter, you are saying you're liable for elected and public employees that are making debt for everybody. So you're saying that you are liable for their debts, their employment. You're willing to pay all the structure, even though under House Resolution 192, it's already protected under that. We're supposed to be autographing or signing our water, electricity, and basic food bills off. Some people misuse that, and we're going to buy a mansion or a Mercedes, and some people have got away with it, but a lot of people have been put in prison and jail over that. And it's like, I don't recommend people doing that. It's like, get it notarized from your senator, from the state attorney general, so that way you have evidence to prove this. And this is what I'm working on with the Utility Commission and stuff, working on that myself. Because once I get that done, then I can bring it up to everybody else, and then everybody else needs to write these letters. See, that's the one thing. You've got to bring this stuff into law. See, and the one thing is, I want to clarify this. Merely being born native born within the territory boundaries of the United States of America does not make such an inhabitant a citizen of the United States. Unless an American Indian originally to this land, but technically that's already been argued, but this is the 1884 case I'm talking about, subject to the jurisdiction of the 14th Amendment. That's Elk versus Wilkins, Nebraska, 1984, 5S.C2 or CT.41112 US 99-29 L.ED.643. So, and most people have Native American blood in them, that their family's been in this soil over 100 years anyways. So, and this is the point that you want to make sure that you know your rights, especially with your arm rights. Because once you start filing your stuff, and ask them, you know, is this the law that you can take my gun? And ask them with their own laws. Send it to the House and Senate congressmen. Because once we can start getting these things sent out to these elected and public servants, and they start responding back, and we start getting evidence on this, then we could sit there and we have ways to come up with the solutions to the problems without trying to keep fighting it in court. Because then we have the solutions, and then when it goes to court, now we've got all these individual cases. Class action suits you do not want because they could throw them out. But if you got so many suits, let's say, 30, 300, or 3,000 suits, and if they throw out half of them and the other half win, then the other half has to be brought in. You got to comprehend the game that they play. And to them, it's a game. These men and women, to them, it's a psychological game of chess. To them, it really is a chess game. 8 U.S. Code. This is dealing with, and I'm going to clarify this so you comprehend that either you're a lawful native or you're a citizen or national. 8 U.S. Code 1401, national citizens of the United States at birth. 1878, subsection A, publication L 95-432, 3, struck out before the following redesignation PARS, and that's 1 to 7 and 8 to through J, respectively. The United States and national citizens were declared enemies of the United States by FDR by Executive Order 2040. Because they were declared enemies of their country because they're foreign nationals, foreign whatever. That's why the 1938 Foreign Registration Act came in place, because this was ratified. Executive Order 2040 was ratified by Congress March 9, 1933. FDR changed the meaning of trading with the Enemy Act December 6, 1977 by changing the word without to citizens within. So that's the big point in the United States. They change these things to incorporate you in the walls of their structure to cover the debt of the 1938 foreign or future debts. This really comes because I've done the research. The British corporation government determined and established the value of the future of labor of each incorporate individual is justified to be $630,000. A bond of $630,000 is set on each certificate of live birth or birth certificate. The certificates are bundled together in a set, then placed as securities on the open market. That's Wall Street. These certificates are then purchased by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, yeah, that's the banks. And or foreign bankers. The purchases in the holder of the title. Because now you ended up, that birth certificate was changed in a title. That's like your title of your car, the title of your land. When you go in and register something with a state corporation, you get a title. When you register your child with the state, you get a title to that child, technically. So these process of each and every person is jurisdiction and bound servant. See, they're putting you into a corporation, and that's why when it goes to your arm rights, and if you are a part of that corporation, they already have it on record. Because people do this. When you do your surveys, they do surveys that came out and said, oh, well, the law says that you have to fill out the survey you get every year. That is a statute administrative code word. That is not the law. Well, it's the law by the corporation law, but not by the Constitution. Because if you go back in history, and I've done this, where people say, well, that goes back, the surveys went back to 1777, and it's like, I haven't been able to prove it. I've had people send me stuff, and I've seen where they have amended things. After 1886, they amended things. And that's what they've done this. H.R. 192 with discharge or debts. That's why I ask you to pull up H.R. 192 and get the certified copy that we put out, and we want the certified copy from Congress. And there's a certified copy online on that. So you want the certified copy. Then that way, and that's what I'm working on to get. That's why I say, if anybody gets it, please send it to me, because then that way I can file that with the House and Senate, we can get these moving. But I don't have the resources, because they went after me very hard to make sure I didn't have resources. And that is frustrating, because I'm battling right now with what they call property taxes, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. Because if I don't come up with a certain amount of money right now, because I had to spend money on my dog's cancer surgery, and so trying to do that so I get these other things done, so that way I don't end up in a war. Well, Anyhow, no cop can drag you into into jurisdiction. No officer acquires jurisdiction by deciding he has it. The officer, whether jurisdiction is ministerial, decided on his own peril. That is Midtown versus Lowe, 1886. So this is going back to the Civil War area, after the Civil War area, during the Civil War area, where they say that an officer. Now remember, an officer is an officer of a military corporation, like your police officers. They call them officers. Because remember, back in 1886, they didn't have officers here in this country. New York didn't start putting what they call officers in New York City until 1901. And back then, they had limitations of what they can do or what they can't do. And I have read the structure and done the research on it. An individual is harmed and abused by governmental authority is assured that he will be compensated for his injury. That is Owens versus City of Independence, 100 SCT 1398, and that was done in 1980. That was before 1983 on the Civil Rights Bill. And remember, civil rights go back to the Civil War of the Civil Contract of 1871 with the Vatican. Okay, and that's the one thing that, of comprehending how these things work compared to what we're led to believe. And that's what I'm saying, that you need to bring these points up. When you email your senator and congressman, put the stuff in. Ask them if this is the law. Ask them what applies to the Constitution. Ask them to put it in writing. When you are kidnapped and held for ransom, aka arrest, they do not take you immediately in front of a magistrate. And the law says that they have to take you in front of a magistrate immediately. No, they take you into booking. What they want to do is get your fingerprints and photographs, and that is identity theft, folks. That is literally when you get falsely arrested, you file identity theft charges on these men and women. Yeah, and see, when you go, you're supposed to go in front of a magistrate immediately before you even get photographed or fingerprinted. But they got you under a corporation, and so when you haven't got a piece of paper that says that you are not the corporation member, this is how they get away with it. One arrest has a duty immediately to seek a magistrate, and failure to do so makes a case of false imprisonment. That is Health versus Boyd, 175 SW2D, .217, 1943. And even to go back to even Brooke versus Stimson, 108 Mass, 520, 1871. Determine a person arrested in custody for any purpose other than that taking him before a magistrate is illegal, and that was done in 1871. So we've got these court cases on record from the federal Supreme Court, and they're supposed to honor this. And we've had judges that says, and I've been in court where people say, well, that doesn't apply to me. Well, it does, but then you have to file on that judge. And a judge is not immune for law when he breaks his oath of office, corporation or not. If he breaks his corporation oath and you have the laws that he's supposed to go by, these administrative rules that they call them, or Supreme Court cases, now you've got them. See, this is the one point that you have to do. Compulsory of fingerprint before conviction. You're not even supposed to get fingerprinted before you're convicted. Once you're convicted, then they can. Is there unlawful encroachment involves prohibited, basically a self-incrimination. That's People versus Halvern, 215, New York, SUPP 417. That was 1926, and that's a summary of the court case. And so when I put this newsletter out to people, I have all this stuff in the newsletter. You know, and I don't want. I have the dictionary law of 1893 dealing with Christianity. Christianity basically is saying that you are a religion founded by Christ, and Christianity is said to be part of common law. Common law is British law. That's the one thing I put that up. And if you go into a judge and you ask the judge, I'm going by common law, well, the judge gets to decide what common law he wants to do. Christianity is a parcel of laws of England. Therefore, reapproaches the Christian religion is to speak a subdivision of law. That is Taylor versus Case Ventris, 293, 1676. So this is already an English law, that they've already done all this stuff in England. So when people start going common law, well, know what common law is. Is it common law from this country or common law from that country? You know, I like native law. I like that structure, the law of the jungle. When Bush came out, when he ran, Bush Sr., well, we want man law. We don't want law of the jungle, people. That was his big speech he did to the general public, and I remember that. At that time, I really didn't comprehend everything he said until later on, and I went, no, we want the law of the jungle. That means if somebody breaks into your teepee or your home or something like that, you have the right to defend yourself. If you go by the law of man, that means you have to wait for an officer to come and ask permission. So anyhow, the law of the land, finally, the Supreme Court says, he owes nothing to the public so long as he does not trespass upon their rights. A sovereign individual does not have to pay taxes. If you should be discussing Hale versus Hinkle with running of the mill attorney, he or she will tell you the case is old and has been overturned, which has never been overturned. They lie. If you have an attorney that cites the case and it says it's overturned, there will be not to be a magniful response. You want them to prove it in writing. They can't prove it in writing. It's never been overturned. But they do this, and most people say when an attorney tells them or a judge tells them, well, that's been overturned. So people just go, okay, I take your word for it. I don't trust these men and women. Neither should you. Shouldn't trust them with your children. Like if DHS comes knocking to your door, you tell them, no, where's the warrant? The warrant has to be signed by a grand jury. We posted that up, I believe, on new.org and trackers. A judge cannot sign an order. Basically, the only way a judge could actually sign an order of arrest is on military. And that's in their military codes. If you are not, or a civilian, one way, because some people say civilian is one way. I go by native, and I want them to prove it. And the one thing, since 1905, the Supreme Court has cited Hale Hinkle a total of 144 times. So Hale versus Hinkle has never been overturned. It's still used in the Supreme Court today. So, and that is the point, that you have to comprehend how these courts are working. If it's an Article I legislative court of the contract of 1871, or is it an Article III court by the Constitution written? And that's where you want to ask your elected and public officials, your judges, your attorneys, put it in writing. And you want them to respond to it before you go, and you have to clarify. Everybody says, well, I'm a citizen, I'm a person. Well, I don't like you. I won't use those words because I'm native. I like using native born. I'm a native law. Let them go against that. They have to be bound by the treaty, by their own administrative rules. They have to go by the treaty first. Even though a lot of them are not doing that, but I've, like with the deal that's gone on, and what is that? Whatever. I'm trying to remember the deal with Rock, where they've gone after them for the pipeline, and I try to get the chief of the police out there, or the chief of the tribe out there, and I talked to him and his wife a little bit extensively, and I said, well, you need to file the criminal charges on the board members of the CEO. You need to file the charges on the people involved on the top realm of it, on their personal assets. And they're like, well, we don't want to do that. And it's like, okay, well, you don't want to do that, then you just lost your land. They don't want to fight for their land. They don't want to learn that process. That's the thing that they go, well, we have a structure here that says they can't do that because of the treaty. Well, you're going in and saying that the treaty says this, but you're talking words. You're not filing the evidence to back it up. 18 U.S.C. Code 8, Obligations of Other Securities of the United States. Read that, comprehend. If you pay a federal debt, taxes with a debt note, that's a federal crime. Security and exchange. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm bringing to people's attention. When you do that, and you start talking these languages, and let them prove it, and take them to the Supreme Court. They don't want to go to court. They don't want this stuff on public record, because if the general public comprehended this, they would lose most of their income. That's like everybody goes to church. Give us your 10%. Pay for your sins. You pay your way into heaven. Of course, I can't comprehend that one, because what people call God, or what they call Christ, or whatever you want to call it, Jesus, where does it say they need money? Where does a God need money when he has everything already? See, to me, that's not logical. And see, in 18 U.S.C. 411, 31 U.S.C. 3124, exempt from taxation. This is the one thing, they already have this stuff in federal law. Is bringing this out for your arm rights, your taxation rights, to know what the rights are to you, and you have to read this stuff. You have to bring it forward. They're not going to do it for you. You're public pretender. That's what they are, public pretenders. They're not there for you. The judge is not there for you. The judge is to make an income off of you. That's his job. He is to work for the corporation, and if you actually do the research, and I think we have that out new.org and trackers, but if you actually read who owns the banks, who owns the jails are owned by the attorneys, lawyers, judges, And not only that, they're owned by big corporations in your cities. You know, I live in a small community in this county where I'm at, and 18 of the big businesses here in my community invested into the bank, into the jail. We didn't even have a jail in my county until 1994. Prior to that, if anybody got arrested for Dewey or anybody got arrested for without a license or insurance, they had to take them to Salem. They weren't going to expend the cases to take them to Salem, so nobody got arrested prior to 1994. I know. I mean, I came here, I was hunting and fishing. I never had a hunting and fishing license. The only time I ever did is when one of my relatives started purchasing that for me, and it pissed the hell out of me. Because why are you putting me in the system? And all I hear is, well, the system says this, and I'm like, you go by your Bible, and it's like, well, yeah, and I'm going, I don't care about your Bible. I'm not part of your system of your Bible. I don't want to have nothing to do with that. I don't believe in paying Caesar and all that stuff. Caesar ain't my man. Caesar is from another country. Why are you bringing that into this country? The people, you've got to comprehend when they're bringing foreign religion in here and they're trying to tell you to go under foreign religion administrative rules. We don't want it. That's like the United Nations. We don't want the United Nations. The United Nations is prepared to come in to go after and break your doors down and steal your arms, steal your assets. Trust me, they call that an act of war, so that means by the war they can rape women and children and they cannot be charged for it. Comprehend that under war. That's what they call the price of war. Most people don't comprehend what they call a price of war. You've got to start figuring this stuff out and quit playing ignorant, not only to yourself, but those around you. It's like the word sovereign citizen. What an oxymoron. I mean, I learned that one the hard way myself. I'm sovereign. I'm not a citizen. I'm not a national. I'm not a person. So once you start figuring out the words where you make your screw-ups on, and I've been there. I have a right to say that I have been there. I can screw up. I've been there. I made sure that I corrected my wording. I made sure I started correcting myself on this. And so you can't get upset until you know. Once you know, it's like a judge will tell you, well, it's your responsibility to know the law. Okay. All right, so now I'm getting to the point where I know the law, and now they just don't like that. They don't want... I mean, I've known a lot of people who have been put in jail within 72 hours. They were thrown out of jail because they were educating people in jail of their rights. They didn't want them in to do that. And these jailers know this stuff. When I was in jail 3 times, I started to get booking release, and the sheriff deputy would say, hey, Ed, you know you don't have to sign this if you don't want to. And I said, I don't want to. He goes, open the gate. And then I go to court, and the judge has me arrested 3 times, and I've got it on YouTube video saying, you didn't sign the agreement I wanted you to sign in jail, so now you're going back to jail until you sign it. I go back to jail, and then I get released again, and I didn't sign it, and then the 3rd time, you're going back to jail, and for all this, because I videotaped a cop serving an unlawful warrant or illegal warrant. So next thing you know, I got a $75,000 bond put on me. Went from $7,500 to $75,000. Of course, I already paid the first one. And then they're telling me, well, that doesn't exist anymore, so now we're going to put a $75,000 bond on you. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. You know, so I mean, I paid over about, $12,000 to that jail. And I only got $8,000 back, and I'm told, well, they're allowed to keep money, and I was never convicted. My case was recalled. So it's like a product recall. It's like they're liable for damages. Let's say if your car gets recalled, the toy the kid's playing. So recall means that they're taking on liability and damage. And I have it where it says my case was recalled, thrown out, because I wouldn't play their game. And this went on for a year and almost 2 years. I mean, I had to hide out in the state for about a year because they were trying to kill me in jail, and I was even warned by a couple of public servants, if they get a hold of you, this is what's going to happen to you. So, and I appreciate the honor and respect that some men and women gave to me on the circumstances. So, I took that very seriously, so I made sure I wasn't available. But these things do realistically happen. So when President Trump comes out and says that we're going to just take the arms and we're going to go to court afterwards, he's putting martial law in place, and that means there is no courts. Like I said, it could take years if it goes to court. Says it right in that statement. We'll play that statement again, and then I'll open up the floor. But like he says, it could take years before it goes to court. And so they know this. They're setting it up so that way it does take years to go to court. They're setting it up so that way you cannot take it to court. They're taking it under democracy to really screw you up. It's like, this is the one point, it is just so frustrating. So why don't we play that deal and we'll open up the floor.
Allow due process, so no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons in the possession
Or
of that
might
individual.
take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system. Because a lot of times, by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms. They saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through the due process second. So everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through the due process second. Taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through the due process second.
All participants are unmuted.
So we'll open up the floor. Floor is open.
Ed.
Yes, floor is yours.
Yeah. You said that a person is considered to be a corporation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Taxes are coming up. Couldn't we file it as under a corporate since we're considered corporations?
Well, yeah, you could do both. You could definitely do both. But I would put your rights in first. Then you could do the corporation. But I would always put yourself first. And you could do it under UCC like some people are doing it. If that makes sense.
Some, yes. Now, how are they going to be able to take everybody's guns if they do not file, like in Texas, they have it where you don't have to register your gun if you buy it from a dealer that is not, like a rifle shop or a gun shop. You don't have to, you have to register it there. But if we have these where we have places where they just hold it like once probably about 3 or 4 times a year, and we can buy weapons, and they don't do a background check, and you don't have to register it. How are they going to be able to collect everybody's weapon if they don't know if they have it?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the point, is knowing it.
What are they going to do? Are they going to just leave us with bows and arrows to fight?
No, they want to get rid of that because in England they're trying to get away kitchen knives, anything over 12 inches.
Well, then how's my butcher going to cut my meat?
Well, that's what they don't want you to do. They want to try to put us back to the barbarian days. If that makes sense.
It does. It's frustrating though, that they're trying to push us back to, I guess, the dinosaur age where we just, I don't know, work with rocks.
Mm-hmm. That's the whole point. They want to make sure that we're subsidiary and bowing our heads to these people, these corporation members.
Just like Australia.
Right, exactly. You know, you got that one right. And look at what Australia had a 240% increase. You know, that is the point. They have had a 240% increase of crime. That's the one point that people don't realize. You know, that's the one thing that people don't realize. And England is going through that right now. They've had so many men and women raped and murdered. And what was that? Sweden is another country, besides putting that law in that they own your structure, you know, that they own your body. And in Sweden, they kicked out all the Muslims. That's the one thing that people don't read. They don't read this stuff. They don't do this. You know, that's the one thing, you know, that people don't read the history. They don't read the history. They don't realize what's done in the facts. That's the one thing that people don't comprehend this stuff. And once people start comprehending the truth of this stuff, this is where we're going to be saving ourselves. That's why I'm putting up these templates that I'm looking at, because I'm actually, when I start doing these services to the senators and congressmen, I'm going to be putting up, I had to go through one that I had to chop down a little bit, because I had things that were pointed out to me that made logical sense. So I'm going to chop them down a little bit, and then I'm going to start serving them to the House and Senate of who owns the children. So that's the point. We need to know who owns the children. If they're claiming them as corporation, okay, then that way we know that we have to start filing on these people in the Superior Court. That's the one point. Got to start standing up on these rights.
Ed.
Yes, go ahead.
Aren't they violating the Constitution under Article 1, Section 8? Because if the sounds like the executive is trying to tell the judicial what they need to do and how to do it, and just forget about the due process. We'll just go ahead and collect the weapon, and then they can do their due process later.
Right.
Isn't that a violation of the Constitution?
You got it. That's putting us under the British law.
But then aren't they? What do you call it? Can we? Well, then I guess we could sue the president then, because he's violating due process.
Well, yeah, but that's one point that we've got to start getting that filed to them. See, that is the one thing that is getting that done.
Do you think the NRA would also
I've
help?
I've talked to them about that. I've talked to their lawyers. And when the NRA back in 1983, I think it is when they started going with the corporation, they lost over 250,000 members, but then the Public Employees Union came out. In the Public Employees Union, and I knew people back then in that structure, literally in that structure, that they were told if they didn't buy a hunting and fishing license and keep it up, they would lose their job. And if they didn't join the NRA, they would lose their job. So they made up their loss of venue. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, it's as plain as on their nose. They're violating the Constitution of separation of powers, and they are not following that. And that's what I mean, I don't know. To me, I think Trump is starting to show maybe some of his true colors, that he really doesn't care. He's just, what is it, putting the cart before the horse.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he's doing that because when you look who's sitting next to him, Feinstein. Okay, that is the one thing that people got to comprehend. Feinstein has been working with foreign agents for years. Not only that, the railroad contract that went through in California, her husband owns the company that got the $1 billion railroad contract. See if that makes sense. So they know what's going on. They know it. They're passing this stuff back and forth because these people like to go to their fancy restaurants. They know that you don't have a right. And they know that when you claim this stuff, that they know that they're going to go after you on this. These men and women know this stuff. Yeah, I mean, and they know that they're going to be doing this. And so that's the point, that people have got to come together. They all do. So as soon as we start standing up for Ryan, that's where we're going to get our rights back to be in place. And so until people start standing up for their rights, they're giving over their rights. And so that once we give away our rights, then we lose. And that's the one thing we don't want to do anymore. We're tired of losing. So until people start standing up, that's how it's going to change. So that's up to us to start doing this. And so that's the one thing that until we start standing up and making this happen, that's when things are going to go and improve this stuff, and that's by we the people making this happen. Now, he came out and bluntly stated treason. He bluntly stated treason. So now we're getting this out. Now we have to start reacting to this because, see, now they want to be able to send the, what is that called? The the United Nations in to start disarming men and women. So, and that is the one thing that they're working on that because they already got. We have over 300,000 foreign military in the state of West Coast here right now. We already have them in this territory. They're ready to maneuver. So, and that's the one thing that people have got to start comprehending this stuff. And until people start comprehending this stuff, this is where we lose what's going on. We lose our rights. We lose the structure. And once we do that, we've lost everything. And in that way, that's why they're getting set up with the FEMA camps right now. FEMA camps are getting ready to set up because in that way, they can take children away, put them into black marketing for human trafficking, sell them off as slaves. And the DHS was already doing that in Oregon. It's already been proven. And they keep that hush up because the media won't run it, because most of the media is owned by senators and congressmen now. Not publicly known, but there are stockholders in it. So they can't go against that by the stockholders, if that makes sense. So they're doing this deliberately. And that's the one thing that people do not comprehend, how they're really doing this. You know, and this is the one thing that people have got to start comprehending, that this is what's going on throughout the structure of our system. And once we start doing this and start fighting on these rights, then that way we have rights. But until we do, you know, we've lost everything on it. And that is the point that people need to start coming together on these points of view and standing on the deal, on these circumstances of our rights, proving our rights, filing our rights, and asking these elected and public officials about our rights. And so once we get those rights confirmed, then that way they can't go after us. But we have to confirm those rights. They're not going to confirm those rights against us. See, I mean, they're going to confirm their rights against us, I mean. But that's the whole point. They want to go after and shut us down. They don't want us to tell the truth. They don't want the truth out there stating we have rights. And once we start proving our rights by filing this with the House and Senate and these things, then we've got rights. But until then, unless we prove we have rights, we don't have rights. Because they already got us in their paperwork classifying as citizens and nationals and persons. And once people start standing up and saying they're not a person, not a citizen, and claiming that, and ask the senators and House of Representatives, ask them in writing, could you please define person for me, citizen and national? Can you define citizen or civilian into that too? And then that way, when they respond back to you with their writing, then you got grounds to stand on. And that's what we want to make sure people have grounds to stand on. So until people have grounds to stand on, we don't have nothing. So, I mean, that's the one thing, is that proving this. That is the one thing, that once we start proving this through their own system, they can't do that, because then we got to make sure the Supreme Court starts standing up. I mean, we got a Kentucky judge that was just convicted for human trafficking with DHS recently, and he's serving a 20-year prison sentence. So some of the judges are starting to get it to be honorable, because they don't want to end up in prison themselves, and they know that people are doing this and catching on, and we the people are waking up, but it's up to us to make sure. And that's the whole point. If we the people don't stand up, who else is going to stand up? You know, it's like the one thing I posted up here that I sent to you and others that I know over in Texas area, and March 4th they're setting up for another so-called dramatization shooting. Crisis actors are wanted, and they're publicizing that in the media out there. Craigslist and the local media. Crisis act. Well, they're not calling it. They're calling devastation actors. So it's learning how they use the words of how they're bringing people into this stuff. So, but anyhow, do we have any other questions or any other thoughts at this point? Okay, well, if we're not going to have any more thoughts at this point, then we might as well just call it a night. I do appreciate everybody for joining us. And a lot of people I know do send me emails and stuff like this. I do get the information back to you as fast as I can, because I'm doing that for a lot of people myself. But anyhow, I like to say, may the Great Spirit look over you, bless you, may Mother Earth produce for you, and may the Creator take care of you.
Allow due process, so no one's rights are trampled, but the ability to go to court, obtain an order, and then collect not only the firearms, but any weapons in the possession
Or
of that
might
individual.
take the firearms first and then go to court, because that's another system, because a lot of times by the time you go to court, it takes so long to go to court to get the due process procedures. I like taking the guns early, like in this crazy man's case that just took place in Florida. He had a lot of firearms, they saw everything. To go to court would have taken a long time. So you could do exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second. Exactly what you're saying, but take the guns first, go through due process second.
Well, thank you for listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnston. Today is March 3rd, 2018, and we'll catch you tomorrow with Education by Ed. And, well, we'll see what happens then. Have a good night, and thank you for joining us.